So we're on our next handout. This handout is larger as far as it has more pages, but that's because each problem just takes up a lot more space. These are actually pretty much all the same. You're going to need Desmos graphing to do this. Now you'll see there's a lot of information they give you up here, but really the only thing I really need is that right there. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to type it into Desmos. Okay. Yesterday we learned how to make a table like this right here turn into a scatter plot and into an equation. Well, they did that for you already and they just gave you all that information. All right, so here we go. They're telling me that the equation is y equals 0.141x plus 33.7. Okay. Now, I don't see my equation on my graph. That's okay. We actually don't need it for the first two questions. So the first two questions, it says, what does the slope of the line represent? Now, slope, I'll write this over here. Slope is always going to be the change in y for every unit that x changes. Now that is a general statement. We're going to try to make that make sense for this specific problem. So here, this is my x. My x is distance in kilometers. My y is cost. Okay, so it says, what does the slope of the line represent? Well, slope is the change in y. Well, y is my cost. So how much does cost change? We could say, yeah, so the change in cost, then we'll say for every, well, it says unit that x changes. Well, again, x is distance and specifically is measured in kilometers. So for every additional kilometer, additional kilometer. Now, additional kilometer, what? What is this talking about? Well, it's talking about the cost of a flight. So every additional kilometer, so a plane travels. There's not one specific way you could say that, but it's the change in y for every unit that x changes. Okay. That's what slope is. We'll do the first two, and so that doesn't make sense. Hopefully, after we do the second one, that'll make a little bit more sense. It says, what does the y-intercept? Well, y-intercept's right here. Should use a different color. There we go. Right there. And the y-intercept is when x equals 0. Well, again, x is our distance. Okay. So if my x is 0, that means my distance is 0. Well, in the context of my problem, if my distance is 0, that means the airplane's not going anywhere. Well, what is y when the airplane's not going anywhere? So that would represent, so y is the cost of a trip, or maybe I should say a flight, because we're talking about airplanes. A flight that you could say goes 0 kilometers, or that goes nowhere. A lot of times our y-intercept might not make any sense, like right here. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what it would. So a flight that went absolutely nowhere would cost $33.70. All right. Now, that's how we do A and B. Now notice I didn't use the graph for A and B. I just used what X was what y was. All right, so A and B are always going to be the same. They're always going to say, what does the slope mean in the context of the problem? What does the y-intercept mean in the context of the problem? When I do C, D, and E, that's when I actually need to use my graph. Okay, so I'm going to clear off some of this, give me some space on my graph. Now I erase some of the actual answer. Hopefully you got that already, or you can rewind if you need to. All right. Now to understand how to do these, I'm just going to figure out, are they giving me an X or a Y? So right here, I'm looking for the number. I'm ignoring most of what they give me. That right there. That kilometers is an X. So that means X equals 1750. Okay. Come down here, the next one. Right there. Oh, that's another X. X equals 4850. I know that because, again, kilometers is my X. And then if I come down to the last one, it gives me a number, but that's dollars. Ooh, that's a Y. Y equals 220. Okay. So over here, I'm going to do these individually, but I wanted to show what I was doing. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click, and I'm just going to say, for the first one, this is part C, the one I did in pink, X equals 1750. And I'm going to see if it'll change it. Can I change it to pink? Purple, that's close enough. All right, there we go. Now, I don't see any lines because these are all really big numbers. So I'm going to zoom way out. There we go, to be able to see my lines. So I'm going to click right here, see where my lines cross, and I get two numbers. Now, one is the number I just plugged in. That's the X equals 1750. So the other number is the one I want. So I'm going to get my little pen out and say, okay, well, the other number, that's that one right there. It says, what will be the cost of that flight? Well, the cost would be $, $280 and 45 cents. Okay, so if I ever trying to figure out what X equals anywhere on that line, I can just type in X equals a number. It throws up a line, and then there we go. Now, we're going to do the same thing on the next one. The one in orange, it says X equals 4850, right? That's a big number. I'm going to change the color to orange. I'll have to zoom out even more. And there it is over there. Click on it. Again, the first number is the 4850. The second number is the one I want. Second number right there. And again, this is round to, and this is round to the nearest dollar, which means I should have rounded that previous one to that right there. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. So this one, if I round to the nearest dollar, 55 cents, well, that's rounding up. So I'm going to say $718. Okay. All right. So that's C and D. When I get down to E, I don't have X equals, I have Y equals. I'm just going to type in Y equals 220. And I see a line pop up. I want it to be a different color. Let's see, I've used red, purple, and orange. We'll go green. All right, there we go. Now, if I want to get rid of any of those lines, so for instance, I already did C and D, so I can just click on the color and it'll hide them. And so now I only see the two lines that actually matter. Click where they intersect, and I get that right there. Now here, remember, we already typed in the 220. That's what I typed in. So that is what I want. And it says round to the nearest kilometer. So it means round to the nearest whole number. So that means my answer is 1321 kilometers. So what kind of a flight would cost me $220? One that goes about 1,321 kilometers. Okay. All right. Now, all the problems are pretty much the same. We'll go over the first two, but all the problems are pretty much the same. So there we go. Zoom out just a little bit so I can see all my. Oh, it's really small. You have the handout, so here we go. Graph, maybe a little bit. So we can get rid of all of those. All right. So let's see if we can answer our question. It says, what does the slope of the line represent? Well, the slope of the line is how much y changes for every 1 unit that x changes. So let's start off with what is y? Y is wind speed. So change in wind speed okay? And then for every 1 unit, air pressure changes. Where air pressure is in kPa. No idea what that stands for, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. So change in wind speed for every additional kPa. Oops, this supposed to be a lowercase a apparently. kPa of air pressure. Here we go. What does the y-intercept mean? Well, y-intercept is what y is when x is 0. Well, again, air pressure is my x. So wind speed, y is my wind speed. So wind speed when there is 0, should put units, sorry, 0 kPa of air pressure. Okay. So there we go. And again, I'm assuming in this case that probably doesn't make any sense either, because it's probably impossible to have 0 kPa of air pressure, but it doesn't matter. That's what the y-intercept means. It means when would I have, what was the wind speed when I have 0 air pressure, okay? All right, so that's how we write our answers for A and B. Now, what about C, D, and E? Well, I need to figure out what am I given? All right, we'll start off with this one. It says 969 kPa. Well, that's a x. So x equals 969. That one right there. 876 kPa. Oop, again, that's an x. Because x is kPa. X equals 876. And then green. It says 56 knots. Well, knots is a y. So that's y equals 56. All right, so now I have everything I need to come over to Desmos. Now to start this off, I'll start with that equation up there. Write it in right there. Y equals negative 1.15 x plus 1180. All right, beautiful. And let's see here. Go ahead and just type, I'm just gonna do these one at a time. The purple one says x equals 969. Okay, and we'll change the color of that one to purple. Change the first one to blue. All right, we'll zoom in a little bit here just so I can make sure I'm clicking where the lines intersect. The x is 969, so it's the other number I care about. It says round your answer to the nearest knot, meaning the nearest whole number. So that's 60, well, 65.6 would round to 66. So 66, and our units are knots. So again, I'm going to click right here on the color to hide that line. and type in my next one. X equals 876. Change that one to orange. Click on where they intersect. So I get the 876 is the other one I care about. It says 172.6. And again, I'm rounding to the nearest whole number. So 173. 173 knots. That one, move on to the next one. This one says y, so it's important to make sure I'm doing the right one. Y equals 56. I see they intersect right there. Click on the point, and it says 56 is in the y spot, so the x is what I'm interested in. It says to the nearest millibar. I guess that's what KPA stands for. So we're round this to the nearest whole number again. 391. Oh, sorry. 977.391. We'll round to 97. It's not a 7. There we go. 977 kPa. All right. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So the getting the A and B, the slope always trips people up how to word that one. Those A and B are kind of tricky, but C, D, and E should be pretty straightforward. Just figure out the number, type in either X or Y equals. And that's it.